Texas A&M taking on Auburn on the Plains, and a couple of coaches that need to get some W's now that we've hit conference play. Auburn's a 3.5-point pick by Vegas right now, Chad. Obviously, they played well defensively against Clemson. Very impressive outing against Deshaun Watson. Texas A&M with a big win that we talked about earlier against UCLA.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go very far into this one. I think A&M curb stomps Auburn, just point blank. I don't think there's going to be much of a I liked Auburn's defense against Clemson, okay, at the end of the day. But I think offensively, A&M has a lot of firepower. Not saying that Clemson doesn't, but Deshaun Watson hasn't really been playing like himself the last couple of games. Even the last game, they didn't look too great. I think A&M at home is going to come out and be explosive. This is a chance for them to kind of make a point. They did a phenomenal job against UCLA. Not saying Auburn's in that same aspect. Auburn could try to keep it close, but I honestly think at this point, I think A&M just comes out and they're going to blow the lid off of Auburn.
All right, Mike, we got the Aggies going at it. We talked about it a number of times in the offseason. I think the two of us really liked this Texas A&M squad from the standpoint of unpredictability. Where are they going to go with this season? And one of the toss-up games went their way early against UCLA, so that's one for Kevin Sumlin in keeping his job. But they've got a difficult matchup with Auburn on the Plains.
Yeah, Mark, I think Chad hit on something very, very good. That the Texas A&M offense against the Auburn defense, and we talk a lot. You look at Auburn's first game with Clemson and how well they did, particularly holding Deshaun Watson in check. But he hasn't really looked good. A lot of people don't realize that Clemson's only bringing back 4 guys on their defense, and Auburn's offense still struggled. Clemson also doesn't have the wide receiving core that Texas A&M does. So all Trevor Knight has to do, he doesn't have to win the game with his legs, and he doesn't have to win the game with his arm. I don't think he has to do as much as Deshaun Watson has to do. All he has to do is distribute the ball, and he's got about 5 guys he can distribute the ball to. Then you got to look at the Auburn quarterback battle. We saw the first game with Clemson. They shuffled guys in and out, even mid-drives. Shaun White had the majority of the time last week in Auburn's win against Arkansas State. Hey, Arkansas State's a really good team, and Auburn won that game 51-14. So I don't think it's going to be quite as big of a margin of victory for Texas A&M as Chad thinks it's going to be. I think it'll be a little bit closer. I think Shaun White actually has better passing stats on the season than Trevor Knight. I think obviously Trevor Knight's played better, and he's led his team better. He's actually been far more important to his team than Shaun White. But Shaun White has not played poorly. They just can't get that offense in sync against top-tier opponents. Again, Arkansas State's pretty good, so don't overlook that 51-14 Auburn win last year. I think this game's going to be close. But I think two units are really going to make the difference for Texas A&M. Their talented wide receiver core and their defensive line. Their defensive line, I think, has the ability to turn this into a one-dimensional game. And if it gets to be a one-dimensional game, Texas A&M will take control of the game and win it. Maybe not as big as Chad thinks so, but win it handily. So look for that. Look for Texas A&M's defensive line under John Chavis to make Auburn a one-dimensional team and really take control of this game. I like Texas A&M by a little bit.
I know, Dave, this has been the narrative for a long time, but it's still the truth. The West is stacked. These two teams would compete for a division championship in a few other places in the Power 5, but this might be a bottom feeder game. We'll see how the rest plays out, especially for Auburn hosting Texas A&M.
Even though it was Arkansas State, I think we were kind of surprised by the way the Auburn offense kind of showed up and the way they looked. Shaun White took most of the snaps. Kerryon Johnson looked strong running the ball, so Auburn was able to mix it up a good bit. And their defense, is better. But something I found, Auburn's defense still giving up. They're showing up, the ability to give up big plays. And going against A&M, that is not a good combo. Auburn has allowed 10 plays of 20 yards or more, and 5 that have resulted in 30-plus yards so far. So, with Trevor Knight coming in, he's been the ideal fit so far, I think, for A&M. Auburn's running game, like I said, it got going. And Shaun White got comfortable, but with that offense and the way it was running, the best way to stop that offense is to get in the backfield. And if A&M does anything like they did against UCLA when they just lived in the backfield, it doesn't matter what Auburn does. It's A&M against UCLA with 10 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. I mean, that if they get anywhere close to that against this Auburn offense, it's going to be a long day for Gus Malzahn. I don't think they'll get quite those numbers. I do think it'll be a good game as well. I like Shaun White much better than the other Auburn options. So I think he himself can keep this game a little close with Auburn, but I like A&M to take this.